Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. In India, thousands of farmers have set off from Maharashtra state to join the protest at Delhi borders. Farmers from Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have been camping for weeks against new laws they say favor big corporations. Meanwhile, farm leaders say the latest letter from the Narendra Modi government has nothing new to offer. In Afghanistan, at least 5 people have been killed and 2 others wounded in a mine blast in the capital, Kabul. Police say the mine was placed in a vehicle carrying doctors. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. The U.S. Congress has approved a $892 billion coronavirus aid package. It is being combined with a massive $1.4 trillion government spending bill to fund federal agencies for the new fiscal year. President Donald Trump is soon expected to sign the package into law. The U.S. has surpassed 18 million coronavirus cases with more than 319,000 deaths. As vaccination efforts mount nationwide, President-elect Joe Biden received his first dose on live TV to boost confidence in its safety, while Pakistan has reported more than 1,700 new infections and 82 fatalities in the last 24 hours. The nationwide death toll has jumped to 9,474. Globally, there are more than 1.7 million deaths and 77 million infections. And in cricket, Pakistan beat New Zealand by 4 wickets in the final T20 at McLean Park, Napier. New Zealand won the first 2 matches to clinch the series 2-1. Mohammad Rizwan was declared man of the match for his winning innings of 89 runs. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. In India, thousands of farmers have set off from Maharashtra state to join the protest at Delhi borders. Farmers from Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have been camping for weeks against new laws they say favor corporates. Earlier, a 65-year-old farmer protesting at the Singhu border attempted suicide by consuming poison. He was rushed to the hospital and is now out of danger. In a separate development, farm leaders say the latest letter from the Narendra Modi government has nothing new to offer. They have also appealed to Bihar and other states to join the agitation to further pressurize the government to repeal the contentious laws. Meanwhile, the Left Democratic Front of Kerala has decided to convene a special session to pass a resolution against the laws. Moving on, Islamabad has asked the United Nations to probe the extrajudicial killings of 11 Pakistani Hindus in India. Human Rights Minister Shireen Mazari said this in a letter to the UN High Commissioner. Mazari demanded the fulfillment of reparations for families of the deceased. She said India should abide by the Vienna Convention and allow an impartial investigation into the matter. Mazari demanded the constitution of an investigation team over India's gross human rights violations. In August 2020, 11 Pakistani Hindus were executed extrajudicially in Jodhpur district of Rajasthan in India. And now moving on, in Afghanistan, at least 5 people have been killed and 2 others wounded in a mine blast in the capital, Kabul. Police say the mine was placed in a vehicle carrying doctors. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. Kabul has witnessed at least 60 attacks in the last 2 months, in which 133 people have been killed. And Iran has denied involvement in the recent rocket attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh says U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's accusations aim to create tensions. In a tweet, Khatibzadeh said Iran does not support attacks on diplomatic missions. He added that U.S. presence in the Middle East is a source of regional instability. Meanwhile, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi has confirmed the arrest of several suspects in the attack. In a press release, al-Kadhimi said the attack on Green Zone was a cowardly terrorist act. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack. And Iran says it will rapidly reverse its violations of 2015 nuclear deal when the U.S. and European powers perform their duties. In a tweet, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said this is the last chance for world powers to save the deal. Zarif reiterated that a renegotiation of the accord is out of question. The foreign minister said the European Union shares the blame with the U.S. for harming Iranians. He added that democracies cannot ask Iran to violate its parliamentary legislation. He was speaking after a virtual meeting of the parties to the pact, the first at the level of foreign ministers in over a year. Moving on, amid heightening tensions with Iran, the U.S. Navy has sailed its nuclear-powered guided missile submarine through the Strait of HORMUZ. According to an official statement, the submarine was accompanied by 2 additional U.S. warships. Navy said the presence of USS Georgia shows the fleet's ability to operate wherever international law allows. It said the U.S. is committed to regional partners and maritime security and will defend against all threats. The announcement also included details on the vessel's capabilities, including its ability to carry up to 154 cruise missiles. This comes after the U.S. said it is prepared to react if Iran launches an attack to mark the death anniversary of Qasem Soleimani. Moving on, China has urged the U.S. to halt what it called Washington's erroneous actions. This comes after the U.S. imposed restrictions on Chinese and Russian firms for alleged military ties. In a press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said Washington abuses the concept of national security to crack down on foreign enterprises. Earlier, the U.S. published a list of 58 Chinese and 45 Russian companies, restricting them from buying American goods. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said the move will assist exporters in screening their customers for military end users. The list is scheduled to be posted for public inspection in the Federal Register today. China has warned of countermeasures against U.S. visa bans on its officials. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says Washington used visas as a weapon against Beijing. In a press briefing, the ministry's spokesperson Wang Wenbin said the U.S. has severely interfered in internal affairs. Earlier, the U.S. issued visa sanctions on Chinese officials over alleged human rights abuses. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said China's authoritarianism curbs people's freedoms of expression and religion. And U.S. Senator Ron Wyden says dozens of email accounts at the U.S. Treasury Department have been compromised. Wyden's office issued a statement following a briefing given to Senate's Finance Committee. Wyden said the full depth of the Treasury Department's hack was not known. The Democrat said hackers also breached the systems at the Treasury's Departmental Offices Division, home to its top officials. He also quoted the Internal Revenue Service, saying there was no evidence that agency or taxpayer data was compromised. Earlier in an interview, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said there had been no damage in the attacks. Mnuchin had assured that authorities were on top of the hacks. Moving on, the U.S. has sanctioned 3 Nicaraguan officials over their support for President Daniel Ortega's government. In a statement, the Treasury Secretary reaffirmed the Trump administration's commitment to target the Ortega regime. Steven Mnuchin said Washington will continue to expose those who suppress democracy. The officials blacklisted include Vice President of the Supreme Court, National Assembly Deputy, and Leon City's Police Chief. Meanwhile, Trump administration has also imposed Cuba-related sanctions on 3 businesses. They are accused of being run by the Cuban military and evading existing curbs. Lashing out at the U.S. measure, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said the country will move forward no matter what. Israel's defense forces have killed another Palestinian over allegations that he attempted to open fire at a security checkpoint. Palestinian media said IDF closed the old city after the shooting near the Bab al-Hatta gate of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Meanwhile, the outgoing UN envoy for Middle East peace, Nikolay Mladinov, issued a stark warning about the plight of Palestinians. He said loss and displacement are part of the personal history of every single Palestinian household. Earlier, China's representative to the UN expressed concern over the expansion of settlements in occupied Palestinian territory. He also urged concerned authorities to immediately lift the blockade on Gaza. Moving on, U.S. Attorney General William Barr has undercut President Donald Trump on the election and the Hunter Biden probe. In his final public appearance, Barr said he saw no reason to appoint a special counsel to investigate claims of election fraud. He said there was no basis for the U.S. government to seize voting machines used in the election. Set to leave office this week, Barr said Hunter Biden's investigation is being handled responsibly and professionally.
If I thought a special counsel at this stage was the right tool and was appropriate, I would name one, but I haven't, and I'm not going to. On the second question, I think to the extent that there's an investigation, I think that it's being handled responsibly and professionally currently within the department, and to this point, I have not seen a reason to appoint a special counsel, and I have no plan to do so before I leave.
Barr also reinforced the belief of federal officials that Russia was behind the massive hack of U.S. government agencies. Moving on, the U.S. Congress has approved a $892 billion coronavirus aid package. It is being combined with a massive $1.4 trillion government spending bill to fund federal agencies for the new fiscal year. The approval of the mammoth spending bill follows days of furious negotiations. The bill allocates $166 billion for one-time payments of $600 to citizens earning less than $75,000 in the preceding tax year. It also includes a paycheck protection program extending $284 billion in loans to small businesses. The wide-ranging bill also steers money to schools, airlines, transit systems, and vaccine distribution. President Donald Trump is soon expected to sign the package into law. And the U.S. has surpassed 18 million coronavirus cases with more than 319,000 deaths as vaccination efforts mount nationwide. President-elect Joe Biden received his first dose on live television to boost confidence in its safety. Globally, there are more than 1.7 million deaths and 77 million infections. More on the coronavirus in the following report.
A surge in coronavirus deaths and fears over a more infectious mutation of the virus has prompted nations to issue more stringent curbs for the Christmas week. Canada's most populous province, Ontario, has announced a partial shutdown of businesses and banned most indoor gatherings. A report says last week the virus claimed one life every 30 seconds in the U.S. as the country saw deadliest 7 days with over 18,000 deaths. California says it will extend stay-at-home orders as many counties have run out of intensive care beds. As new infections, hospitalizations, and deaths keep soaring, Biden has urged the public to remain prepared for the vaccine jab.
I also think that it's worth saying that there's great hope. I'm doing this to demonstrate that people should be prepared when it's available to take the vaccine. There's nothing to worry about. I'm looking forward to the second shot. So is Jill. She's had her shot earlier today.
Britain's highly infectious new strain has caused travel chaos and raised the prospects of food shortages. Scientists say, unlike the previous strains, children are as susceptible to becoming infected with the new strain as adults. The European Union says it will develop a coordinated strategy in the region for how to handle travel to and from Britain. Meanwhile, Europe's medicine regulator has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine with inoculations to start across the region within the next few days.
As we have promised, this vaccine will be available for all EU countries at the same time, on the same conditions. The first batches of this vaccine will be shipped from Pfizer's manufacturing site here in Belgium within the next days. And I've always said during this pandemic that we are in this together.
Over in Asia, Malaysia has signed a deal to procure 6.4 million doses of AstraZeneca's coronavirus vaccine. While in Australia, New South Wales reported the lowest one-day rise in cases in nearly a week, fueling optimism that the dangerous new outbreak in Sydney is under control.
And in Pakistan, 82 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to 9,474. The health ministry says 1,704 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It added there are over 40,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. Out of over 460,000 countrywide cases, more than 410,000 people have recovered. The ministry said the southern province of Sindh has the highest number of cases with over 205,000 infections. The province of Punjab has reported more than 132,000 cases, whereas in the capital city of Islamabad, over 36,000 have been infected so far. And the Pakistan-China joint air exercise, Shaheen-9, which commenced on 9th December, has entered its last phase. Air Chief Marshal Mujahid Anwar Khan said Chinese military aviation technology has the full capacity to meet the challenges of modern warfare. The air chief lauded the professionalism of the pilots. He said the interoperation of the two air forces will create employment options. The China-Pakistan joint training has been conducted regularly since 2011. China's foreign ministry says the routine drill does not target any third country. And with that, we'll be back with more news after a short break. Stay with us. And we're back with more news. Turkey says Ankara and Jakarta should work together to support the Muslim community against Islamophobia. Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu says the two must protect mutual aims and interests of Muslims. Cavusoglu addressed a press conference alongside Indonesian counterpart Retno Marsudi in Jakarta. The Turkish foreign minister highlighted the increased threats of discrimination against the Muslim world. He added that both countries have agreed to increase bilateral trade to $10 billion from the current $1.5 billion. The two ministers inked a memorandum of understanding on diplomatic cooperation. Moving on to Lebanon, the parliament has endorsed a landmark law criminalizing sexual harassment. It could see the most flagrant perpetrators spend up to 4 years in prison and pay fines up to 50 times the minimum wage. A rights group says the law should serve as a deterrent and lead to a significant drop in the rate of sexual crimes. The bill also gives protection to victims and witnesses who testify against the accused. It also creates a specialized fund at the Social Affairs Ministry tasked with offering support and rehabilitation to survivors. The bill explicitly gives survivors the right to seek compensation. And a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee was removed from the United States Capitol. Officials announced the pro-slavery monument will be replaced by a statue of Black civil rights activist Barbara Johns. Johns was 16 when she led classmates at her all-black Virginia high school in protest of substandard conditions. Her activism led to a 1954 Supreme Court lawsuit that declared segregation as illegal. In a statement, House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the Congress will work to end the scourge of racism. Pelosi said there was no room for celebrating the bigotry of the Confederacy in the Capitol or any other place of honor. And Christians in Pakistan are preparing to celebrate a somber Christmas owing to the second wave of the coronavirus. Residents of Karachi and nearby towns joined in the annual Santa Claus parade in the port city. More in this report.
Large crowds dressed as Santas marched from the Christian cemetery in Karachi to the press club. Some were wearing masks as the coronavirus continues to plague the country. Not only the Christians, but people from various other religions joined the pre-Christmas celebrations.
I am dressed as Santa Claus because Christmas is coming and I want to bring happiness to the children and bring them gifts. People from all religions and faiths have joined us, Muslim clerics and people from various interfaith groups.
The jubilant crowd, including women and children, rode through various streets of the city in trucks, bikes and camel carts. While dancing and singing Christmas carols, not everyone was seen wearing a mask. Vicar General of Catholic Hospice Karachi has called on the masses to adopt precautionary measures.
Most certainly, this is an epidemic, a virus which everyone has to protect himself from. That is why we are stressing that SOPs should be followed and precautionary measures should be strictly adopted. You can see everyone wearing masks. Even I am holding a mask in my hand, which I have just removed to talk to you. You can see that all our people are celebrating this festival while adhering to the SOPs.
Health officials said there are nearly 459,000 COVID-19 infections in Pakistan, with more than 9,392 deaths.
And Jupiter and Saturn appear to meet in a celestial alignment known as a Great Conjunction. This was the first time in 400 years that the two planets were spotted so close, almost as a single point of light.
The sky over the northern hemisphere treated stargazers and astrologers to a once-in-a-lifetime illusion when the two biggest planets met. The rare spectacle resulted from a near convergence of orbits of Jupiter and Saturn that happened to coincide with Monday's winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. At the point of convergence, Jupiter and Saturn appeared to be just 1/10 of a degree apart, roughly equivalent to the thickness of a dime held at arm's length. In reality, of course, the planets remained hundreds of millions of miles apart, according to NASA. A conjunction of the two planets takes place about once every 20 years, but the last time Jupiter and Saturn came as close together in the sky was in 1623.
And now moving on to business news, Pakistan has secured $1.7 billion debt relief agreements to tackle the coronavirus-hit economy. The government concluded agreements with 19 bilateral creditors, including the Paris Club. The deal secures moratorium on debt repayments to ease coronavirus impact on the economy. Ministry of Economic Affairs Secretary Noor Ahmed said the timely deal will save lives and livelihoods. Pakistan was named as one of the countries to secure the deal from the Paris Club in June. And UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ruled out an extension to the post-Brexit transition period. Earlier, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and London Mayor Sadiq Khan called for an extension to focus on the pandemic instead. Addressing a press conference, Johnson said there are still problems in post-Brexit trade talks. He said London's position remains unchanged and it can thrive without a deal. He added that it is vital to understand that the UK has got to be able to control its laws and fisheries. Johnson said the World Trade Organization terms will be more than satisfactory in case of no deal. And moving on to sports, Pakistan beat New Zealand by 4 wickets in the final T20 at McLean Park, Napier. New Zealand won the first 2 matches to clinch the series 2-1. Mohammad Rizwan was declared the man of the match for his winning innings of 89 runs. Earlier, New Zealand set a target of 174 runs after being put into bat first. Devon Conway top scored with 63 runs, while Tim Seifert added 35 for New Zealand. In reply, Pakistan were able to chase the target with 2 balls to spare. Mohammad Hafiz added 41 runs for the Green Shirts. And in football, Chelsea have thrashed West Ham United 3-0 in their Premier League encounter. Tammy Abraham scored twice to help the Blues move up to the 5th place on the league table with 25 points. Chelsea had an ideal start as Thiago Silva powered home a header in the 10th minute. Abraham then scored a second-half brace to seal 3 points for the home side. West Ham remain 10th on 21 points. In another fixture, Burnley beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 2-1 to move out of the bottom 3. Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood scored goals for Burnley, while Fabio Silva scored for the Wolves. And the American international Alex Morgan has ended her loan spell at Tottenham Hotspur to return to the U.S. 2-time World Cup winner Morgan joined the Spurs from Orlando Pride in a bid to regain match fitness following the birth of her child. The 31-year-old signing was seen as a coup for Spurs, but only made 5 appearances in the competition. She scored twice in the Women's Super League, where the club sits 8th out of the 12 teams standing in the standings. Spurs have struggled in this season, and the club sacked coaches Karen Hills and Juan Amoros last month, with Rehan Skinner taking over. Morgan's last appearance came in a 3-1 win over Aston Villa on December 13th, when she scored an opener from the penalty spot. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.